Hello, welcome all. Welcome to the another part of the lecture 2. So in this lecture, we are discussing about the effective reviewers comments. So as we have learned about in the part 1 of our lecture 2, that how to respond back to the reviewer and what are the different forms of peer reviews. So I think you have now understood the process very well, that what is a peer review and how the peer review works, what are the different kinds of peer review, and how open access, open peer review, how close peer reviews matters to the decision of a journal paper, how the single blind peer review, double blind peer review matters to the journal's decision on a paper. So these all things are very critical to be analyzed. So before you publish any paper, before you submit any paper to the journal, so you have to be very careful about understanding this review process. So now, in the last lecture, in the lecture 2 part 1, we have discussed about the different aspects of the peer reviews. Now in this part 2, we'll be discussing about the different kinds of peer reviews, not in terms of their review types, but in terms of the revision types. So what are revisions? So revisions are like when you submit a paper to a particular journal, the journal takes up time, preferably like around 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, sometime a year, to review his paper from a different peer reviewers. So peer reviewers are generally the expert in the same field, in the field of your paper, and they reside outside the country of your residence, sometimes from the same country as well, but not from your same institute. So they are the expert in that particular field. So those experts actually read your paper very minutely, precisely, and understand the uh, understand the work and suggest some changes for its improvement. If they think that the paper needs some improvement for further acceptance or their further consideration, actually, so they ask to give you some review. So these reviews are of different types. So let us see in this part that what are the different types of reviews we generally get. So before we understand the review, we have to understand the process of journal revision system. So in the lecture 1, part 4, we understood the process of journal submission system. That means how we uh, how we prepare a manuscript for a journal, how we prepare the entire system, like the cover letter, the all the other supporting documents, and the format of the manuscript, and we finally submit the paper to a particular journal. But in this lecture, we will be learning about the process of journal revision system, and this is quite different from the journal submission system. So, what is journal revision system? Journal revision system is a thing in which you should understand that what is the entire process that will be undertaken while you submit your paper until the acceptance or rejection of your paper. So first, when you submit the paper, the authors submit their research papers to a journal, which is you have selected the journal. That means we have already learned how to select the journal. So when you have finalized that how to select a journal, you should submit that journal, submit the paper to a particular journal. So after you initially submit your paper, after you finish submission and all kinds of other formalities, the peer review process starts. But I want to express one thing over here, that before the peer review process, I told you that there is a rigorous editorial review process. So what's the editorial review process? Editorial review is a thing where the editors and the editorial board members and also the editorial office staffs try to seek the paper's scope, that it does it match the scope of the journal, does the quality of the paper looks decent for the journal, does the English quality is good, that there is any grammatical mistakes, changes, does the quality of the figures are correct, does the uh, uh, tables and all the fact that has been mentioned in the paper are correct or not. So all these things are very important before passing the editorial check. So when the paper passes the editorial check, it passes through the peer review process. So when it passed on to the peer review process, that's the time when the reviewer gets the opportunity to review your paper. So manuscript undergoes evaluation by the expert in the field, in the same field from in which you have written the paper, who assesses its strength, weakness, and suitability for publication. So this peer review process is a lengthy process. I just told you before that sometimes it takes from 1 month to sometimes it takes like year or more than that. So this process is a lengthy process, and we cannot decide or we cannot expect the entire timeline of this process. So generally, some journal these days actually have a very strict peer review system. So they only give a month time or 15 days time to the reviewer to review a particular paper. So in that process, it actually helps the author to get their reviews or the revision very soon. So once it passes the peer review process, it goes to the decision stage. So decision is the taken by the editor or editor-in-chief based on the reviewer's comments. So for example, your paper passed through 2 to 3 reviewers. So these 2 to 3 reviewers will decide, or these 2 to 3 reviewers will judge on your paper and they will decide something. So based on the cumulative decision, the editor-in-chief or the editor assigned your paper a particular tag, and that tag is like a major revision, minor change, acceptance, or rejection. So this kind of tag is being passed to the editorial office from the editor based on the decision alongside all the reviews being given by the reviewers. Then you get the decision from the editor. Now, if the paper got rejected, then finish. There is no way you can do anything. If the paper got accepted, which is very unlikely to get accepted on the first round, and if the paper gets revision, then it comes to the fourth stage, that is a revision stage. So in the revision stage, if the process of the process of the entire review process was good and it was supportive, then they suggest you a major revision or minor revision. So major revision are the thing where you will get a lot of reviews. They will be asking you to do a lot of changes, sometimes some very major changes like change of experiments, like rerun of some experiment, execution of different experiments and all these things. And sometimes they just give you some minor revision like changing of some sentences or some reorientation of the paper and something like that. So if the revisions are requested, the authors carefully address the reviewer's comments and suggestions. So once you review the paper, it is ready for the resubmission. So the revised manuscript along with a detailed response letter is submitted to the journal for the reconsideration. So in this lecture series, we will only talk about the part 4 and part 5, like how is the review process, what are the revision that will obtain, and how we resubmit the paper. So once we are resubmitting the paper, we have to be very careful that how we are responding back to the reviewers' comments. So this is what this lecture series is about. So what are the different types of revisions? So the different types of revisions are many. So first of all, the content related revisions, language and clarity related revisions, and formatting related revisions. So what is content related revision? Content related revisions are the revisions which involves the entire content of your paper. It can be textual content, it can be visual content, it can be the tabular content, it can be experimental content, it can be results, it can be anything. Language and clarity revision. Language and clarity revision are generally considered as a minor revision, but if the language is very bad or is not in a decent position, then sometimes it goes into the major revision process. So language and clarity revision is also very important. You have to take care because sometimes it's minor, sometimes it's major. Content related revisions are always the major revisions. And formatting revisions. Formatting revisions are generally the revisions which we get as a minor revision or minor changes. So that means if your paper is not adhered to the journal specific formatting style, formatting requirement from including citation style, figure, table, and reference list, so they actually ask you for the formatting revision. And context and when you are addressing something like conceptual or methodological framework, or changing the experiment, or finding limitation in the experiments, or you have to expand something new with new data or new coding or new experiment, then this kind of revisions are considered as a content related revisions. And the language related revision I just told you is whenever you have some problem in the writing style, you have to ensure that there is a clear and concise explanation and there is no grammatical mistake. So now let us understand each type of revision one by one. So now you have to understand that how we can tackle different type of revisions. So this is the different tips and tricks that I am trying to give you in this lecture, that how you will tackle this. So first we'll talk about the content related revisions. So the content related revisions are the carefully analyzed revisions which are mainly for the content. So content means it can be your entire methodology, it can be your entire experiments, it can be your entire paper, it can be your entire section of particular paper, or it can be entire results, or it can be a part of all of this. So that means it can be the entire paper, or it can be a part of any section or part of any subsection. So anything related to the content, written content, textual content, visual content, tabular content, experimental content, methodological content, framework content, or any sectional content, all type of content is related under the content related revisions. So once you get any kind of content related revisions, be careful while you analyze the reviewers comments and suggestions. So if the reviewers have to be carefully understood, that if the reviewers ask you for any kind of clarification, that does not always mean that you have to uh, again redo the experiment. You have to again apply that changes. If they are asking only for clarification, then you can only answer them in the response to the reviewer. If in the next round of revision, if they ask you to make that particular change in the main manuscript, then you will do so. So it is very tricky to understand sometimes, because sometimes a reviewer comments something and we think, the reviewer wants this in our paper, so we just immediately do that. But that is not correct. Actually, we have to understand which is a comment, which is a suggestion, and which is a clarification that they seek. So these three things are important to understand. So in the based on the suggestion, comments, criticism, or clarification, we have to revise the manuscript accordingly. We have to ensure that there is a clear explanation of the changes made in the revised version. That means we make all the changes that is very clear to the reviewers' comments, and also we mention them in the revised version of the manuscript. So generally what we do, we make some yellow highlighting the new changes, and also write the changes that we have done in the response to the reviewers letter. Next is the providing a detailed response in the response letter and exploring how each comment was addressed. So when you are writing a response to the reviewers letter, it is very important that how you should tackle these questions, like, because firstly you have to understood, was it a comment, suggestion, or clarification, or criticism. For example, if they have just criticized and there is nothing to answer, then that's the tricky part, because how will you answer if they say the paper is not well written? That's the comment number one. Now how will you answer that? Will you answer that, thank you for saying the paper is not correctly written, so now I am writing correctly? No. If they are doing any kind of criticism, you don't need to answer that part. If they are asking for any kind of clarification, then clarify that part. If you are asking them to do some changes, do not redo everything on the reviewers letter. Just do the changes in the paper and mention that in the reviewers letter, comments letter, that I have made that changes in the section number this, subsection number this, or in the line number this. Anyway, you can tell that. So you have to provide a detailed response in the response letter explaining how each comment was addressed. If it is a clarification, give the proper clarification. If it is a criticism, accept that criticism and defend that why and how you have tackled that. And if that's a comment to do something, then answer it properly. If it is a suggestion to do something, then make the changes in the original paper. So this is all related to the content related revisions. Now, when it comes to the language and clarity revisions. So when we talk about the language and clarity revisions, so it is, I told you, because content related revisions are generally the major revisions, but language and clarity related revisions can be minor revision or major revision in both. So you have to understood that is it a minor revision or major revision? If it is a major revision, then you may have to rewrite the entire paper. You may have to rewrite the entire section, or a particular you may have to add a particular new section or a new content to your paper. So when you have been asked for any kind of language or clarity revision, editing and proofreading of the manuscript is very important. So just do not just start making the changes immediately. Edit and proofread the entire manuscript again. Try to find that if the reviewer has missed something. For example, they have written something which you have already mentioned, but they have missed it anyway, because it's a human error. It can be happened. So while you are editing and proofreading the manuscript again during the revision, you have to be careful that all the reviewers' answer are not answered in the last version. If they have already been answered in the last version and they're still asking that, that means they have skipped it or they have missed it anyway. So just tell them politely that we have already done that in the previous version. In this version, in the revised version, we are highlighting that part for your reference. So any editing or writing manuscript is very important. So I suggest it's always better to revise your manuscript one time, two times, three times. It's nothing, no harm in that. So it actually improves the writing style, clarity, and the flow of the content, which we call the coherence of the entire content. If you need any help, if you think that your English is not good, if your academic writing is not good, you seek assistance of a language editor or a proofreader or any professor who is willing to help you. So you can seek help from that particular professor who has published many papers, or your senior, or your any kind of language editor, or even a person who is very good in English, specifically in academic English. So take a help from them on the grammatical and syntax accuracy. That means if the grammar is properly correct, if the syntax is properly well. So I just want to mention you here one thing, that it is always recommended. Just try to remember, it is always recommended to write the paper in an active voice. So if you write a paper in an active voice, if you write a paper very clearly in a simple language, it gets more chance to get accepted, because what journal looks for the not for the very good English, they look for the correct English. Just remember, not good English and correct English are different. So you don't need to rewrite the paper with a very high quality English vocabulary taken from the dictionary. You should use the simplest form of any word, simple meaning, so that your paper, the quality of the paper, the quality of the scientific resource of your paper, or the integrity of your paper should speak for you. Your language shouldn't speak for the paper. So you have to be very careful while you're correcting the paper, because a wrong grammar, a grammar mistake, lot of syntax, lot of spelling mistakes, lot of syntactical error, that is a error in punctuations and all these things, generally reject the paper. So now you understand that what is the language and clarity revision. stands for and how we can manage that. Finally is the formatting revision. So formatting revisions is generally the minor revision. I just told you because generally we get the formatting revision in the last part of the revision process in the when the paper is almost like correctly done with the content and language. So when your language and content of the paper is closely distinct, matching the journal style and journal's requirement, they concentrate more on the formatting. So formatting is an important thing, but not very important, because sometimes if you cannot do formatting, the journal people does it itself. So there is no harm in that asking help from them. But in some way, in some journals, they actually avoid doing that themselves. They actually want the author should do it. So you have to be double check the journal's formatting guideline, make the necessary adjustment, make the changes that is needed for the paper, and take care of the font style, take care of the font size, take care of the interline spacing, take care of the margin, take care of the uh, any kinds of formatting like bold, emphasis, take care of this section and heading, because some journals write Roman heading, some write some writes like numerical heading numbers, I mean the section number, and the most important is the reference style. That's the most important thing. So while you are adding any reference, please be careful that you are adding APS style or a Vancouver style or any other kind of style. So this is very important. So while you are ensuring this paper and everything, so be careful that you are tackling all the changes being asked in terms of the formatting. So formatting revision is a list ask revision, as it considered as a minor revision. Generally, it is asked at the end of the all revision process. So more consideration should be given to the content related revisions. More emphasis should be given that. Next is the language editing, which you have to do for publishing a dissent paper, and third one is a formatting revision. So generally during the additional consideration during revisions, three things you have to be very careful. First thing is the timeliness, which ensure that the revisions are completed within the given time frame specified by the journal. So you have to ensure that all the if they are asked to submit the revision within 1 month, please try to submit within 1 month. But unfortunately, sometimes we have other tasks to do, or we cannot finish the revision on time. Then it's fine to ask for them. So do not make late without taking permission. If you need time, it's obviously welcome if you email the journal editor, or if you email the journal office that you need 1 month more time or 15 days more time, they generally give you that time for revise. Otherwise, if you don't need time, if your revision is complete, then just submit the revision within a stipulated time. In collaboration, try not to do all the revision by yourself. If you have a collaborative paper, if you have a co-authors in your paper, try to seek input and guidance from all the co-authors, colleagues during the revision process. That helps you to improve the paper, because when some other minds joins, it actually helps you to understand what the reviewer is asking. Because reviewer is asking something X and you are answering them Y, then that's a negative thing and reviewer can't reject that paper. So it's very important that you are adhering to the reviewer's expectation and you seek help and guidance from your co-authors. And the next thing is the ethical consideration. So address any ethical issues raised by the reviewer, such as potential conflict of interest or data manipulation. So that means if a reviewers if the reviewer think that there is some sort of data manipulation has been done, or some sort of discrepancies there, then you have to trust that reviewer, and you have to declare that if you have any potential conflict of interest or not. If you do not have, then just defend them politely in a very mild sentence that how you can address those issues. So So those issues are very important also for the ethical considerations. So when you provide a comprehensive understanding of a peer review process and guidance on effective response to the reviewer's comments, I can assure you that you can enhance the quality of the paper, you can improve the quality of the paper in terms of content and language style, and your paper will be published very soon. So I hope that you understood the entire peer review process of a particular journal and what are the different kinds of peer revisions that you may get. So in the next part of the lectures, we will be considering more on the each and each of the different kinds of review comments and how to deal with that. So I will take you on a real demo on real examples on how to handle those situations where you get some complicated reviews to handle. So thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have understood. So if you have any problem, you can drop me a mail to me, and if you have any other thing in your mind other than this thing, you can also mail me. So thank you again. See you in the next part of this lecture series. Thank you.